Welcome to another exciting episode of What's the FinTech, recorded live from the vibrant heart of Bangkok at Money2020 Asia. Today we have an incredible guest joining us, Angie Ong from Partior. So let's get started and unlock the secret of securing our digital future. Hi Angie, how are you today?
Oh, I'm very great. Thank you for having me, Medhy.
I'm very excited to have you. Partior is a company I'm following for a time now because I'm also working at DBS Bank, and DBS
Awesome.
is part of it. And also we are looking at different solutions. And every time we speak about blockchain and transaction, Partior is one of the key elements here in Asia. So super happy to have you here. Very excited about this session.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe before we start this podcast and the interview, the first question I like to ask everyone is: who are you? Where are you from? What have you done before? What did you study, and how did you come to this position here?
Oh, okay. Let's start with that. For me, I'm the general counsel of Partior.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, people know that as the lead lawyer for the company. I have been in the role for 2 years now, and I actually oversees legal generally.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also had the policy side. I also had the compliance risk as well as policy. So on the legal side, there are a lot of things that we do on the contracts and rule books and so forth, and compliance, how we develop the framework, regulatory and policy. My team also actually engages having dialogue with regulators, regulator engagement. As you know, this is a very heavily regulated area. I'm also very fortunate to be the corporate secretary, so I manage the board and so forth, which one of them, the founding shareholders, being DBS.
Interesting. I would like to deep dive a bit more to understand what is Partior and its missions. So you touch base a bit on it right now, but could you give us a kind of overview of Partior and its mission within the fintech landscape right now?
Yes, definitely. So before I joined Partior, I was Medhy FinTech's head of legal, and I was overseeing what we call DM, the blockchain technology on DM side,
Mm-hmm.
as well as other fintech commerce areas of Medhy. And Partior right now is, for me, to see, it's actually a very evolution to see from the great days of blockchain, and now it's being adopted by TradFi. So Partior actually was founded in 2021. It was an independent company that grew out of Project Ubin, and a collaboration that was sponsored by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. So for somebody like me, coming from what we know as the disruptor previously, this one is actually looking at it as incumbent. It was sponsored and looked after by our regulator. And then the Project Ubin was supposed to see between cross-border transaction using blockchain technology. And as you know, as a banker, and most out there, on the correspondent banking structure, a lot of times that actually use a few days to get a very simple transaction over, especially in the emerging countries. And a lot of evolution has actually come through. So with Project Ubin, Partior was able to move the transaction to less than 2 minutes. And that was remarkable. So what happens was they said, all right, rather than become just a project, how does Partior become something real? Mm-hmm. And that was how Partior was born. So Temasek, which was the investment arm for Singapore, brought the largest bank in Singapore, DBS, and the largest bank in the United States, JP Morgan. The three of them become a joint venture, and that's how Partior was born. Now, Partior then has, if you know, these are all innovative banks in their own realm, and they've actually contributed to building the infrastructure as well. So from the infrastructure, they are the incumbents, so they know what is it that is needed for the TradFi and the financial institution. So they built that in being contributed by those two banks. And then so Partior today has the market infrastructure that's recognized as one of the most quality ones. So I'm very grateful to hear that you've heard a lot about Partior when we talk about market infrastructures.
And also because I do the newsletter on the weekly basis, so sometimes I see good news about Partior as well here in the region. quick question, but mostly about you right now. It's you joined the company, and the company looks to have changed a lot in the last 2 years. Did it impact your role with the company? And did the primary objective when you joined change a bit, or has it been impacted by the growth of the company?
I think the company has actually grown. 2 years has gone by very quickly. I'm sure you've heard from people from startup, and especially in the fintech realm, 2 years is like 20 years in other world. So for me, the 2 years has been very quick. I moved from the United States, from Silicon Valley, and flew over to Singapore. Very fortunate to get in this role. But it was also the exciting part about knowing that I was going to create something revolutionary for the future. It was exciting, but at the same time, knowing there's nothing. I'll tell you a little joke was when I was signing the letter of offer and I wanted to review the stock options and incentive benefits. And then the HR was laughing at me and said, well, Angie, we're hiring you to build that for us. So I was one of that. And so the beginning when I joined Partior, we've actually focused on building the foundation. The foundation for Partior is important in the sense that when I told you I cover the legal aspect, the contract. How do we sign contracts with our client who are sophisticated banks and become our customer and trust that our platform actually works very well? We have rule books because it's not just a bilateral. It's going to have a lot of banks. So how does everybody play by the same rule so that it will be fair for all the rest? So you can see the sophistication of maybe like the Visas and the MasterCard. They have their own rule book to manage all the bank memberships in there. So that's the same thing we did. And then very key important in Partior, if you think about it, is that we're developing this blockchain technology, smart contract. But the intricacy of all the details in that means intellectual property. And that is the value, holds a lot of value to the company. So one of the things we've been building also, aside from the foundation of what to help us operate, we've also built like the portfolio of intellectual property to build value for the company, which I'm very proud about. Then we've also, after that, brought more investment into the company. We've welcomed Standard Chartered. After we have JP Morgan in the US, we have DBS with a strong presence in Asia. So we brought Standard Chartered as part of Series A. They're also our founding shareholder. They come in and they have a very strong European bank. So we have all the regional in there. And then we've done all the diligence proactively looking at the product that we're going to actually roll out and understand the regulatory aspect. So that in today, for example, in Money2020, a lot of regulators are here, policymakers are here. One of the big question for me was, so is Partior regulated? How do we know that? And we actually do all the diligence to build the foundation on what the right frameworks to manage Partior's risk and regulatory requirements.
So this is interesting because my next question was really to deep dive into the regulatory framework and landscape and the policy waters. You answered partially about it, but regulation and policy are very crucial for fintech. So how does Partior keep abreast of the regulatory policy and comply with international financial regulators?
That's a very good question. Thank you. It's one that it's not easy to manage. And I won't actually tell you that, we know 100% of this, but we do a very good job in it. It's a combination of internal. I have teams that actually do research, do a monitoring of all the development of the laws outside that's happening, that's impacting Partior. We then also leverage what we call our bench of counsels and experts, policy makers and experts in all different countries whereby Partior is actually operating or targeting to go into. If you think about it, Partior inherently has to be a global international company, right? To have cross-border, you can't have your own domestic company. It has to grow. So which means that it have multiple regulators. So we continue to monitor. We tap on our experts to have that conversation. Now then, the other piece of it is we also keep abreast with our stakeholders who are in the regulated ecosystem. For example, we have the banks, DBS, JP Morgan, they are also expert in their own area. We'll say, okay, this is changing. So we have those conversations continuously to make sure we monitor and stay abreast or ahead of the game if we could. Then we tap on those outside counsel. And all these collectively, we call it regulatory change management. Now, once we know that, the regulatory policy side means that we have stronger regulatory engagement. Today, I've spoken in some sessions where I say, it is critical for us to have the relationship with our regulators. And a lot of times, innovation moves faster than the regulators. And it means that we have to create awareness. We have to we have to educate. Because sometimes without knowing, when they see change, it's natural for people, including regulators, go, wait, hold on, what is this, right? So we have to play the part of engaging them proactively, having the conversation, whether it's Sandbox, innovation project, Project Ubin, that's how Partior was born, is a way to actually have that robust relationship so that you have a two-way to build on the regulatory. So we have that as the way we monitor all the changes in laws and also continue to have good relationship with our regulators, who then will actually help us to say, we're thinking of this way to regulate your product. And we're like, well, actually, the risk is not here. We're building it this way.
Oh, interesting. This brings a question that I think was very popular a few years ago, but now is less popular. But as you're a legal person, maybe I can ask you this one. How do legal framework influence innovation at Partior, and especially regarding the new product development?
Oh, that one's key. I'm very proud of my team. My team, when I mean that, is the whole Partior team. We embrace totally that the legal and regulatory actually falls within the whole product innovation and product development. So the earlier question you asked me, how do we monitor the laws, the changes? So think of the product. If there's nothing changed about the product, laws might change. We still have to monitor. Now we're doing the flip side. Maybe the laws haven't changed, but our product changed. How do we do that? So that is when we have the new product development assessment. The new product, which means that the legal counsel work very closely with our product, our technology folks, our innovation folks, and say, all right, so we're going to start thinking about this product because our client wants it. What does that mean? Does that mean it needs a license? Do we need to get licensed? What does it mean in terms of what are the laws that we need to comply? Is there a better way of doing it? Maybe we can help them by being a technology provider, but we do not touch the money. And therefore, all the regulatory and all that is still with our banks, our customers. And they can trust that they are managing the risks appropriately. So think of different ways and the pros and cons, the compliance cost versus the innovation cost. So I think that actually helps because from the beginning of it, when we built the product, it comes with regulatory frameworks in mind, innovation, legal framework in mind. So it helps us when the minute we launch the product out the door, we know that it's secure, it's trusted, and regulators can feel comfortable that all their customers are protected. The system is protected.
This is interesting because you speak also about the risk right now and the different framework. So the next question could be, and will be, I think, how do you approach, risk management framework that are both robust and flexible? And maybe I can add like a kind of extra question on it. So what are the risk factors that you believe that are often overlooked in fintech? And how does Partior address those overlooked challenges?
I see. I think the robust risk framework actually is a combination of those subsets that we are talking about. The ones to monitor what are the development, the external factors, what are the laws that are changing, and then the internal factors and what are the new products and offerings that we're pushing out to our customers. So that's in and that's out. You think of it that way. And then you think about the internal risk framework that we're building, right? And I call it the enterprise risk framework, which means that it's an end-to-end in every aspect of it, including if we're bringing more high-risk customers. Maybe today we have JP Morgan and DBS and all reputable banks. Maybe if we have other banks, maybe they're higher risk or any other product we want to go. And that risk factors, as you ask, actually needs to be calibrated and changed to tailor for the risk and compliance program. You have then what happens, a proper reporting. And then the question underlying is to ask ourselves, what is our risk appetite? Do we have the risk appetite to take on the additional risks? And then what are the controls and framework we can build so that we can manage the risk to a point that the residual risk is lower? Maybe the inherent risk is high, but if something we can build internally that can manage the risk lower, we have a sophisticated system, then the overall risk is actually lower. So that actually builds the whole risk framework for us. Now, it doesn't end there. I think what we need to realize is that the risk framework is a continuous process. We start off by knowing the laws, we build new products, and then we continue to figure out if there are new laws, and then new products, and then if there are any gaps, we'll need to build them, and then so that our risk factors will still considerably low, and then we can actually manage it accordingly.
Very good. I have a clear picture. Like everything you say is very clear for me, so it's interesting. Since the beginning, we spoke about the past. We also spoke about the present. If you look at Partior, you say it changed a lot in 2 years. So I would like to speak a bit more like about the coming months and year, especially if you look at emerging trends and technology. We have Money2020 here, and a lot of people are speaking about like the different trends. And I saw one of your panel as well today. So if you look forward, what are the emerging trends and technology you see as a game changer in the fintech sectors? And I would like to add an extra follow-up question on it. It's how Partior is preparing himself to integrate this trend or technology into its operation.
Thank you for that. I think that's a very good question. So for Partior, I think in a couple of years ago, and if you hear the industry, we're talking about the crypto winter, and then it was like just a season, it was going to be like a long term to it. I think if you look back with a positive mindset, you will see that it was actually a blessing in disguise, which means that in the industry, the trust is very important. And being able to look at the industry and think of this new technology and weed out the ones that are not as great, but then keep the technology that is sophisticated and can revolutionize. I think that is actually key to what changes that Partior is going to bring. So Partior's got that blockchain technology, and if we remember, we just discussed, we have the cross-border payments as one of it. And then now the next level is to think about the density of bringing all the different banks into the cross-border platform. Then the question is, should we just stop at cross-border payments? There is more that can be done. The key ones that you mentioned is smart contracts. It will evolve even further. The last few years, if you think about it, there was heavily speculation, NFTs, up and down. Now we can concretely understand the technology. How do we embed it within our use cases? We think about Partior with the cross-border. What is the next level up? We can do FX, PVP. We can do also other capital markets offering. We can look into other evolution of foreign exchange that will actually flow into, swaps that we're talking about. Maybe stock market, commodities. The world is an oyster. So I think that is just the beginning of Partior. The next few years, you will see more of that. Now, Partior, if once the whole industry starts to advance further, I think there will be also a lot more synergies that you will see. maybe Partior will play with other folks and converge and see things that we can offer even better. And then it may grow into different region. Right now, we're not only limited to our shareholders' countries or regions like the US and Singapore, but we're growing out, even right here in Thailand. We're speaking to banks to make sure that our platform, our density is growing because the blockchain technology itself is borderless. So I think there are a couple of things for Partior to grow on that we're very excited. We have realized that the first thing to get the revolutionized next level is to make sure the foundation of the infrastructure is met first.
Very good, very good. I know when we prepared this interview, we also spoke a bit about like the DeFi platforms. You mentioned a bit like smart contract and everything, but if you look at DeFi, do you have like the real world assets part of it as well, or do you? Because you work with the banks, so maybe you touch it a bit, but maybe we can explore a bit more about the opportunities of like liquidity, fractional ownership as well. Is it something that you consider as well?
Yes, definitely. So on the DeFi platform itself, on Partior, that's one of the things that we're actually going to evolve from, right? If you think about it, when I said there's capital markets, there are other use cases that we're exploring with all the different banks. So that would actually help us with then enhancing liquidity, because that is one of the key topic right now. Where does the liquidity flow? Who holds the liquidity? How can that actually evolve? And then you can actually see ownerships, how the fractional ownership flows within that. That is endless if you think about it, because then with the enabling the liquidity, it'll unlock a lot of opportunity for the banks. If you think about it, then what about the commodity they can actually evolve? All these functions that are provided, it's just starting right now.
Perfect. So what's next for you and what's next for Partior? Can you give us some insight into any upcoming project or strategy or goals?
What's next for me? What's next for Partior? Right now, I'm very excited to be part of the team. Like I said, we have so many use cases that we're looking into. You touch upon a real world asset. Those are all endless opportunity. It's very exciting because we're actually speaking with the banks. We're also speaking with the regulators. So on one hand, we are speaking on how to be useful today. What value can we bring today? On the other hand, we continue work with the regulators to say, what is on a bigger scale can we work? So for me, personally, as a general counsel and head of policy for Partior, the understanding that and shaping the future is very exciting for me personally. And I'm just blessed and thank you to be part of this journey. Something that I believed in the blockchain quite sometimes. You can call me, they call it the payments geek. And today now it turns into a blockchain geek, right? So I'm excited about that. Partior has a lot to offer. It has, we touched a lot on all the projects already. The question for us, given that we have also support and trust from our investors, our shareholders that are coming to us. So stay tuned in that era. But I think the question is, where do we need to focus? I think there's a lot of innovation on the plate. Where do we want to focus? And then once we will have to prioritize because there's just too much opportunity out there.
We have a couple of minutes left for this podcast. There is anything you would like to share with us that we didn't cover during this interview, or any point you would like to raise here?
I think on this point, I would invite everyone to look at that, to look at Partior. This isn't a plug, but I think a lot of times what people think about is on the front end, the consumer, the retail. It's just easier and closer to individuals like you and I who will think about, okay, maybe Bitcoin, BTC has gone up, gone down. But then to understand that the Web3 actually has a lot more to offer than just that. And Partior is actually a good example. for us to see how we can extrapolate this whole new technology, because without the real foundation changes in the infrastructure, I think it's harder for the retail or the upper layer to gain scale. The minute we can unlock the infrastructure level, that's a lot more opportunities came out there. So I invite everybody to think outside the box, check this out, and stay tuned for more to come.
If people want to check more information about Partior, can they go just to the website, to LinkedIn? Do you have like any source of information where they can, or maybe it's better for them to reach out directly to you or your colleagues?
Yes, definitely. So we have all our information on partior.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are also very active on LinkedIn. It's one of our source as well. And then obviously they can reach out to our BD team, who will very, very quickly to respond. Myself, I am on LinkedIn, and my information is also on the website. So feel free to reach out to me. I welcome everyone to have the conversation. I'm enticed to learn about what is it out there, how much more we can do.
Perfect, Angie. I'm very happy to have you today. It was a pleasure. I saw you on stage twice, and I really enjoyed what you shared with everyone here. Mm-hmm. So very good to see you, and maybe I will see you next time in another event, maybe for another podcast, or maybe into, I don't know, with Partior on some project.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Medhy.
Have a nice day.
Thank you for having me. Bye.